Hello everyone, back with me again, Rizki Alya Zahra. So today in this video I would like to tell you a story about the novel that I read. So it's actually my last novel presentation in the semester. So the novel title is Bitter is the New Black by Janan Castor. So the story is about herself, it's about the author, about the Janan Castor, yes, who had a perfect life, who had a luxurious life, but one day everything was changed. So she had a big job at a big company, and then she earned a lot of money, wore expensive clothes, carried a luxurious bag, and lived in a big apartment in Chicago with her boyfriend named Fletch. And her life was full of business meetings, shopping, and fancy coffee. She even judged people, most of people, like based on their fashion clothes. Basically, she thought that most people was not like her, so she thought that she's better than most people, which is she's kinda too proud with herself. But then economy crash. Jen lost her job. At first she didn't worry, and then she believed that someone like her would get hired by a big company again. But a fancy makeup, like after losing her job, she's still buying something that kinda useless, like what about the fancy makeup, order expensive drinks, and then still wore nice clothes. But after applying a job again, they passed, then weeks, then months. No one called her again. No one company wanted her. Slowly, her world started to fall apart. Like, her money was disappearing fast. She started to selling her stuff, like her shoes, her clothes, even candles online. Like, she sell it online. She refused to take a job that paid less than her job before, and she thought it would embarrassing. Like, then things get worse. She couldn't pay the bills, her phone got turned off, she and her boyfriend got an argument, and one day she found herself at an employment office, still carrying her Prada bag. That's where the title of the book comes from, Bitter is the New Black. Because even though Jen was broke, she still acted like she owned everything. She owned this world. But life became harder. Jen didn't have an assistant again, and she must to buying her life by herself. And then she had to take the bus, not with the car. She couldn't shop like before. She had to cook a cheap food in her home, and even that made her angry. The stress made her feel bitter, angry, and lost, but also she started to change slowly. With all this free time and frustration, Jen began to write a blog. So guess what the blog is about? So she her self story, like she wrote about her struggles, her memories, her opinions, and her dramatic feelings. She didn't try to sound polite. She didn't try to sound soft, and she was still honest. She was still like herself before, still sarcastic and very very funny. And guess what? People loved it. So the readers started following her blog. They laughed at her stories and related to her problem. Her blog became a small success, and she realized that writing is something fun. And writing was something that she enjoyed, and it gave her hope. And she was still broke, still jobless, but now she had a voice. She had something to wake up for. As Jen continued to write, she began to see her past self more clearly. She realized that her past life, she had a bad attitude, like she's too rude, She's too proud and selfish. She started to understand that life is not always about money, that life was not always easy to pass, but and life is not about an expensive things like money, clothes, or the titles, but it's about how you handle your hard times, how you realize that people who stay with you when the things get worse was the real people in your life. And she learned about being real, which is not perfect. Through it all, her boyfriend Fletch was still by herself during her hard times. They had many arguments, they were under a lot of pressure, but Fletch kept supporting her even when she wasn't easy to live with. She dreamed of a diamond ring, of she dreamed on what expensive fancy wedding, but in the end she realized that true love is someone who's still by your side even though you are in your downtime. Jen's journey is both funny and painful. She went from living her dream to facing the reality, but instead of giving up, she found a new way to shine. She found humor in her problems, she found power in telling the truth, and she turned her blog into this book that have a title Bitter is the New Black. So this is her first memoir. In the end, Jen didn't go back to her old life. She didn't get her six-figure job back or buy all her expensive things, but she found something better. She found a version of herself that was stronger, that was smarter, and then more creative. She learned that sometimes losing everything helps us to find who we really are. And yes, even though she's still sarcastic and dramatic, now she uses her voice to connect, not to show off. So that's all my story. Thank you so much for watching, and hope you enjoy my story, and see you on my next video.